just a lot of light. I don't know what that one up there is doing. Any camera, the first time you get your hands on it, you have to get familiar with it, but it is pretty intuitive. I mean, it didn't take long to kind of figure out the main things I'm looking for. But I guess what took me a little while to really feel was the confidence, because I had never shot with it before. I kind of went in with skepticism, the little that I knew about it, things like it only having contrast detection. I wasn't expecting the autofocus to be as easy to work with as it was. Hey, I'm Frank Multari. I work at the B&H Superstore, and I'm a photographer in New York. And I got a chance recently to play with the S1 and S1R from Panasonic. So when we started out, we wanted to see how it would work with flash. So in the studio, we started doing some flash model shots. And then later we went into the street and did some street style photography, just so we could see how it handles both. Because this has the potential to be a really good studio camera and possibly a street camera too. When we were in the studio, BHPhotos were set up, BHPhoto D2s, and there was a Canon camera in the corner with an air remote on it. Not able to control the power from here, but it's triggering. So when I got the S1R, the thing that jumped out at me was the build quality. We're kind of past the point where the only selling point of a mirrorless camera is that it could be lighter than a DSLR. One of the things that I think can really distinguish the Panasonic system from the rest of the market is just that you really feel like you could throw across the room and it would survive. When I got the camera to test it, I had never shot actually with any of the Panasonic cameras. You know, the controls are kind of right where you would expect them to be. You know, it doesn't take long to figure out what you're trying to do. Button placement was good. It's very easy to switch between something like autofocus continuous and autofocus single shot. The EVF is one of the things I look at the most to see if it feels real, if it feels good. And the resolution, the eye relief, that's one of the things that I think really can connect you to the shooting experience or push you away from it, make you feel a little disconnected maybe. Crazy. Look inside the viewfinder too, because it's even higher res there.
Oh my God.
Yeah. The S1 has one of the best, if not the best, viewfinders I've ever used. And the resolution on it is so good that the pictures that I took while I was shooting it and reviewing it in the EVF, just blown away with the sharpness. I can't even fully appreciate the sharpness of the photos when I go look at them on my smartphone or even my MacBook Pro, which has the Retina screen. So the EVF is off the charts. I've actually never seen a back LCD. I've never perceived one to be this sharp. Image review and checking if you got sharpness, you could actually do it. One of the things that I'm surprised about is how good this lens, I mean, it is technically, I guess, a native lens, even though it's a Leica lens that came out well before this body, but it just works like it's made for the body. One of the nice things about the new Panasonic system, and one of the promises of the full frame system they're bringing out, is this lens alliance with Panasonic, Leica, and Sigma. You know, I was shooting a lot with the 24-90 Leica, and that lens is incredible. So I am curious to see how it stacks up against something like a 24-105 that is truly native, made by Panasonic and released with the camera. Also got a chance to put the M to L mount adapter on the camera and use some M mount lenses. And one thing that I'm really liking about this camera is that I feel confident in the focus peaking. Yeah, it works very well. The unique thing with the way Panasonic does it is that you don't lose the overall composition. It brings up a smaller frame within a frame so you can dial in that focus, but you can still keep an eye on the overall composition, which is very nice. Well, this is a manual focus lens, but if you want to see one, let's see.
Such a big difference.
It's, yeah, definitely.
There's still a lot of detail.
There's still a lot of detail. I think And right now I'm 8 times zoomed in and it's still holding up pretty good, so it's a pretty sharp image. I think for studio, I don't typically shoot in the studio, but I felt very comfortable doing that kind of photography with this camera anyway. It was really nice with the face tracking, the face prioritizing autofocus, and the way that it really shows you whether or not it has the eyes and the crosshairs. So it's doing a really good job, even with a lot of movement.
Yeah.
You know, the 24-90 just focused like a native lens, which I suppose it actually really is, despite predating the system by a number of years. It was just as snappy and responsive as the native lenses that are coming out with the system. So now we're trying it out with the 24-105, which is the native lens that perhaps will be kitted with the S1R. And the 24-105 is not disappointing. I'm on continuous, actually right now I'm on single autofocus point, but it is the face tracking, and it's very responsive to her movements, and it's pretty much nailing every single shot beautifully. In comparing the two lenses, the Leica 24-90 and the Panasonic 24-105, I really couldn't tell a difference in terms of the performance for autofocus. So autofocus, I'm noticing, struggling a little bit in this dark of lighting. S seems to do really well, single shot. Continuous in low light, struggles a little more. We missed in the far eye, and that's a shame because that was a great shot. And this one, yeah, to be fair, it is very challenging and not typical of, you know, how most people are going to use it. What I look for in a camera for street is just pure responsiveness. So we're using the 50-1.4, which is one of the lenses that's coming natively, one of the 3. And right now we're using the Godox, the V860-2. So we figured that might work on the new S1, and it did. It looks like it's fully compatible with the trigger, or if you want to use the actual flash on the camera. Okay, so I just put the autofocus point tracking over her eye. It's working very well. When I go to pick up the camera and take a shot, and invariably I only have a split second, I need to know that the camera is not going to be asleep and it's going to be able to quickly focus and get the shot. So I just want to review really quick. Again, I'm on continuous autofocus with tracking, and initially just placing it over her head, and it's doing a good job. That's kind of my thing. I know the sun is right in your eyes. So a situation like this, you almost really have to be in manual focus. So it's a little slower way of working, obviously. That's why autofocus is amazing. Are you dying? Are you okay?
No, it's a light.
Okay. Yeah, that's really great. And if you want to walk towards me now, you can. I think the camera held up in terms of being able to shoot in a lot of different environments and light environments. We kind of covered this spot a few moments ago with the 24-105 lens, and we just switched it out to the 24-90 just to see how it kind of compares. They're kind of similar lenses in terms of their versatility. The JPEGs looked good, the metering I think is good, and it was very easy. I didn't have a lot of shots where there were huge, errors in exposure, and I think part of that is because of how easy and intuitive it is to change the settings on the fly. Enough here, yeah.
You don't like that? Yeah,
I only took 100 pictures.
Yeah, we killed this spot.
I got a chance to use both cameras. Definitely I used the S1R more. If you don't print, and especially if you don't print large, There's not really a lot to gain with having so much resolution, but if you are printing a lot and you want the flexibility of cropping a photo pretty aggressively and still being able to make something like a 16 by 20 print out of it, then you have the option when you have that really high resolution. If I went out on a really intense shoot with just 2 fully charged batteries, I wouldn't feel nervous about it at all. And I'm pretty sure I could get away with even just having 1. I think the thing that would be the point against it would be the size. So my background is using full-frame cameras. For the past 5-6 years, I've been using Nikon and Sony full frames for doing street photography. A lot of people still do like to use full-frame cameras for that, and I do. But the Panasonic just screams professional camera. I mean, one of the questions I would have is, what is it offering? What's its need to exist? You know, you buy a new camera, you're buying into a system as much as you're buying that specific camera. And this one has a lot of promise with the lenses and delivering autofocus that is extremely competitive with what's out there right now. In the future, I'd like to see phase detection, autofocus, and also when they're developing further lenses, some light, small prime lenses. That would be great. As they continue to develop the system and perhaps introduce some cameras that are targeted to people who do want a light, you know, a lighter system, at that point, I might switch, yeah.
You gotta make it fun. These people don't watch YouTube unless it's fun.
Right?
I'm serious. Welcome to my YouTube channel.